Yeah, I mean, clearly, he's going to be working with a splint and or a brace, so it'll be a level of, but he's a tough kid that wants to play hockey, and you already saw him skating today, and first thing he said to me is, "I'll be back sooner than what anybody expects," and I think he'll be perfectly fine. Just it'll be a little different just because he's had a procedure done, but he'll get past that. He'll be fine. And I just spoke to the doctor today, and he feels great about where David's at.
The Devils are retaining 40%.
Correct. Because I asked. Part of the dynamic of this time of the year and maintaining cap flexibility and performance bonuses and things you're trying to account for now and moving forward. So just part of the nuances of the deal. We're trying to protect everything, as best we could.
There was one player who said he had agreed to an extension. Did you ever get that close to anybody? Did you get an opportunity to talk about an extension with anybody? A possible trade target?
Did I talk to a player agent about an extension?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it seemed like that came together awfully quickly.
Again, I can't deconstruct other teams' deals and what necessarily happened in that case. If you got a specific reference, again.
The Stone side of Davis.
I don't know if I'm comfortable commenting on terms of what conversations I may or may not have had along the way. It's a good deal for him, I can tell you that much.
With the deals that you were able to make this week, Charlie, how comfortable are you with where the team is positioned in terms of playoffs and how far you can go this year?
Well, we got to try to get in. We come off the trip where we knew it was a really tough trip, and the guys did really well. And now we got a really tough homestand. It doesn't get any easier playing against San Jose tomorrow and facing Tampa on the other side of it. 15 games in 30 days, it's going to be a grind, and I think every team feels that way. So we've got work to do, but I'm excited for our guys and where they're at. And, you knock on wood that they're going to stay healthy. I think they are appreciative that we've continued to add to the group and not necessarily take away. We lost a good young player by all accounts. Obviously, I'm on record as stating that, and that always hurts. But our guys are in a position to try and win, and it's a tough task. It's a long road ahead.
Do you feel like getting Coyle and Johansson can get you past Toronto, Tampa Bay, whatever, the issues that remain in front of you as far as the playoffs go?
Well, every day's a challenge. As I said, San Jose, I think, is a really, really good team and a challenge in the West. So we focus on that tomorrow. I think our group has done a really good job. They attacked the whole road trip as individual games and felt comfortable against all their opponents. They won in different fashion. I don't know if they really would like to script the one in San Jose as moving forward as to how they would like to live by, but they found a way to win. And earlier in the year, I don't know whether or not the group would have felt like they could have won that game, and outscored a team like that. And so it says a lot about them. And they do understand what their identity as a group is. And I don't think we'll deviate from that. I think we've complemented that and maybe given them a little bit of buffer by bringing in players that can produce, certainly on 5-on-5 level. So we've got tough teams ahead of us, down the stretch, and if you're fortunate enough to get in, don't make the mistake that you think you want to pick your opponent. Every team that gets in is a quality opponent.
Looking back now that the deadline's over, how important was it for you to not give up the first round pick?
Really important. Yeah, I just think that we had conversations on different levels with different teams and as to what players represent going forward, but I do believe that we would have put ourselves as the organization in a tough position. I've been fortunate to have the support of the ownership group to make the decisions that we need to make and try and win. That's the balancing act that we all face. And this time of the year, it's you feel like at times you're on the cusp of making a mistake, but also making a real good decision. So it's a balancing act.
Donnie, correct me if my math is wrong, this is your 4th year as GM. The trade deadline every year can be different. What have you taken from each experience, and do you see patterns? Do you stuff that you've learned that you kind of store away?
Yeah, there's no question when you're on the other side of the line as opposed to getting information secondhand, it's far different. And I think you do gather information along the way as to how you can utilize those pockets of information. And it's a learning experience. It's flat out a learning experience that you hope to continue to grow from it. And when you revisit conversations you've had and you get more comfortable, and you have to make a decision. And hopefully we'll all continue to move as a group and as a staff. And I lean on each and every one of them. I'm very appreciative of all the work that goes in. We were all on a conference call late last night discussing a situation, and every one of the guys was readily available. So that's stuff that you have to acknowledge, that we've got a group that's all pulling in the right direction on and off the ice. So.
Do you expect Johansson to be in the lineup tomorrow?
Yes.
When you acquired Charlie Coyle last week, he's a versatile player, but we see him more as center. With Johansson, he's a versatile player, but we see him more as wing, or is he so versatile that you don't see him as one more than the other?
Well, Charlie in particular, we felt that, we've run through some people, and they've done a really good job for us in the course of the season. But the way things slotted out with Charlie going in the middle of the ice gave Bruce a lot more comfort and flexibility. Now, can we get the production that we need in those other positions? And that's where Johansson sort of falls along the same lines. He has produced. He can play in different roles. He's a three-position player as well. Primarily been playing a little more on the left side, but he has played a lot of center. Was drafted as a center. So if you felt more comfortable moving Charlie when Pastrnak comes back, and moving Charlie to the wing in a production, like those are things that the coach now feels like he has those clubs. And Bruce has done a good job tinkering and moving guys around. And Jake DeBrusk has caught fire going back on the left side. It's an area we wanted to kind of continue there. But Marcus will be the first one, and he said, I'm going to play wherever you guys want me to play and feel comfortable playing there. So that's a player with an awful lot of games under his belt in different situations. He's got playoff experience. And I think the versatility is something that remains to be an important part for us.
There was another GM earlier today that called today predictable in terms of where players ended up. And do you feel that same way about where some of these guys ended up, and were you surprised at how everything kind of happened that last half an hour to 45 minutes?
Predictable in the sense of every player going to the desired destination? Is that what you're referencing?
In terms of who ended up where. I mean, we talked about a couple of other big moves.
I'd sure like to have that crystal ball if that's the case. I mean, deals are completed, right up until the 3 o'clock deadline. And you can be arguing about, sometimes as you're trying to finish up a deal, the simplest things, or what you think are simple things, but it gets complicated. I don't necessarily agree with that, And as far as the players that were moved, I think that becomes a little more predictable. You're talking over the course of months. So those names, you guys do a really good job of figuring out who those names are. How's that?
Usually the prices come down too as you get closer to deadline. It didn't seem like that was the case today. Was that surprising, or was that just more of a buyer's market?
You know what, every deal, you got to find a settling point. If there are two teams involved, the price usually stays pretty consistent. If there isn't, the bottom drops out a little bit. Happens. Every player in trade is different. You do get a general, band that you can fall and predict, but every deal's different.
Were these
Was
picks
it two more?
conditional at all?
No.
They locked in around 2 and 4. Yarmo was just on TV saying that he discounted calls immediately when he was getting calls on his top 3 prospects. Were you in the same boat there in terms of people asking either Vakanainen or whoever? Yep.
Very much so.
And is it Vakanainen 1?
Could be. Yeah, we've been consistent. I know that people have indicted us for moving younger players. You have to give up good players to get players that you think can help you win. That's the nature of the business. We have to continue to draft and develop and hit. You just do. Whether we knocked everyone out of the park, absolutely not. But we've accumulated enough good young talent. We've implemented a lot of good young players. So I know the number of people a number of years ago asked me whether or not, well, now are you moving David Pastrnak? I don't know if anybody was in the room when they were asking me those questions, but I emphatically told you I'm not moving David Pastrnak. Well, I would say the same thing about Jake DeBrusk, or if you want to ask me about a different player. We're committed to what we're trying to do, but it's a balancing act. Your team gets in a position where you're I don't know where we end up, but right now we sit pretty well in the standings, and we need to maintain that. And I don't think this town would accept anything less than to try and win, and our players don't want to either.
Connie, how important is it for you to balance the youth with the veterans for your coach when it comes, especially towards playoff time, because of guys, young players can jump up but also struggle a bit in playoff time. You have those veterans mix in and out.
Well, I think we saw that a couple of years ago. We saw players that, even David Pastrnak for that matter. It's an eye-opener going to the playoffs. So you do have to have, players that can support. The alphas, they want to lead. They're going to be there. They've been there. They've won. They want to know who they can trust. When the heat goes on. And Sean Corrali's a great example of that. He's been a real good playoff performer, and hopefully that continues. But there's a growth there for every player to go through it. Until you know what you're up against, you might surprise somebody, once or twice, but eventually, you have to go through it and grow from it. And I think we've got several of those players now, but Brandon Carlo is a good example. He hasn't played a playoff game. We love him as a player and what we think he can bring in that environment, but he hasn't played a game yet. So, every player is different and every situation is different. I think our veteran core has done a really good job, and I think the way we play now is indicative of that.
What is Cam's role in kind of bringing players into the organization, teaching them the way, what it takes to play here, city, anything like that? Thinking about, both Johansson and Coyle.
Whose role? I'm sorry, I missed.
Cam.
I think Cam would be best to answer how, I'm not going to speak for him. As I told you earlier, it's very comforting for me as a general manager to have the communication that we do have, to have the latitude, but also in the support, but also to be, like everybody should be, held in check when you need to be, as he's out looking for the best, what's best for the organization as a whole. So, but not to dismiss the question, but I think it's best for Cam to answer that himself.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you, everybody.